Welcome to Entry Point Faith. Join us each week to discover fresh meaning in the world and find faith your way. Now, here is Pastor Nancy Lafferty.
Nancy sends her regards, Nancy 1 sends her regards from the beach or the pool, whichever place she is this morning. So the biggest communication problem is, as Jen pointed out, that we sometimes don't listen to understand fully, we listen to reply. The most basic of human interactions, listening to one another and fully understanding not only the words but the meaning in what the other person is striving to say, and then responding in a way that really connects fully with them. It's simple, yes, but we so often fail at that. So I was 6. And when I was outstanding in my field, my older sister was 9, and we lived in the middle of nowhere in Iowa, so she was really the only other kid that I was around. She was a relatively good big sister, you know, as sisters go. But of course there were times where she didn't really appreciate a little brother 3 years younger who was quite annoying and could get in the way of a girl who was on her way to great things. And so who understood me when I was 6? Next slide, please. It was Sparky. Whether I was sad or happy or just wanted to have somebody to hang out with, it was Sparky who was there. The cutest and most loving black and white terrier the world had ever seen. It was him and me. He knew my every mood. He knew when we wanted to play fetch, when I wanted to listen to my latest made-up song. We could go chase chickens or just hang out under the tree in the summer drinking grape Kool-Aid. Now, he was a farm dog, so unlike the pampering that many canines get today, and I know a few of you in here who pamper your canines, Sparky was relegated to sleeping in the barn with the milk cows. So he'd curl up in a half ball in the straw at night, and I'm sure wait with great anticipation for me to appear in the morning the next day. I fully anthropomorphized this little guy. I love that word, by the way. He was human to me. He was real. He listened. He tilted his head in understanding. Now, the fact that I fed him scraps under the table might have helped. But can pets really read our moods and our minds? I think so. Does Bo know when Nancy and Marcy need a hug or when it's time to play? Does Fiona know when it's mealtime with Betty? And we have Gracie, right? We have a picture of Gracie, actually. We have a new painting of Gracie, and Gracie knows all the moods, right? All the moods and everything. Isn't she cute? You betcha. So this fundamental skill in the animal world is a necessary behavior for survival. It's fundamental for safety or warning, for dominance, for attraction, and as we've discussed over the centuries, for love and understanding for us humans as well. I'm continually amazed at the video clips that I see on Facebook or elsewhere with macaws mimicking humans or whales sharing their songs deep in the ocean with their calves, or elephants going back and pausing at a burial place or a death site for a fellow elephant and paying respect. That love and understanding that we see in the animal kingdom. The classic scene when Jane Goodall, who was studying primates, says goodbye to the chimp who comes back to hug her. There was a certain level of understanding. For us humans, as we grow from babies onward, we demonstrate caring and understanding at the most basic level from the moment we are born into the new world. We can display, I think, a wide range of emotions. Certainly our kids and our grandkids do. Our 7-month-old granddaughter, Isla, is a perfect example of this. She smiles, she fusses, she coos, she does her best to let us know what she needs and what she wants at that moment. And honestly, she is absolutely the perfect grandchild. She doesn't cry, she just smiles. As many of you know, being a grandparent is simply the best. Enjoy, hug, hold, dirty diaper, return. Still not a diaper changed by Grandpa for either grandchild. It's a record. I'm not going to worry about it. But lots of hugs given and received. As you can see, that's Isla with Grandpa. Now, Grandpa has been known as the nap master. And this is the ultimate of all compliments when you can get a 7-year-old to take a nap. It seems like only a nanosecond that kids can go from being an infant to starting to process ideas and starting to think and label their emotions. When do you listen? When do we listen at our best? And why? Do we listen to understand, or do we listen to reply? My partner keeps telling me that I have no sense of empathy. I have no idea why she feels that way. As Stephen Covey said in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, seek first to understand. Before anything else occurs in terms of actions or agreements, plans, first and foremost understand the ideas and feelings of those others who are with you in whatever endeavor it may be. Now, in order to test this listening thing out, just before COVID a few years ago, I decided to try an improvisation course. And if you know improv, it's very loose and open and a little bit scary. Now, other than being literally 20 to 30 years older than any other person in the class, these were 30-somethings, 40-somethings, I wasn't worried at all, right? No, I had more experience in life. I had more experience in making a fool of myself than many of the kids in the room. But my anxiety level was actually pretty high. So my quiet prayer was something like, "Oh God, please don't let me make a fool of myself, or if I do, please give me a lot of company. And please don't let my hearing aid batteries run out in the middle of the class." In listening, in interacting, in improv, we have no idea what's coming next. We must suspend judgment, kind of blank out your mind, get out of our own heads and fully listen to what the other person is saying and doing. The core, magic, crucial skill in improv is called yes and, rather than no but. Yes and. We're invited to fully embrace what the other person is saying and where they are going with that idea that they have in mind, no matter how crazy it is. And then we can say yes, and we add to that idea. We don't negate it or take it in another direction. We validate it. We don't have a no but. We don't say, oh yeah, that's a good idea. That reminds me of the time that I did such and such. Let me tell you that story. How often do we do that or have a tendency to do that? Or others do that to you and you say, no, I don't want to hear about that. Really pausing and taking the conversation in a place that the other person wants to go. The first rule is to agree in improv. Always agree and say yes. When you're improvising, it means you're required to agree. So I say, Jen, freeze, I have a gun. And if your response is, that's not a gun, that's your finger, you're just pointing your finger at me, it kind of ends the scene, right? It kind of kills it, right? But if I say, freeze, I have a gun, and you say, oh, you mean the gun I gave you for Christmas? Oh, you devious devil. And now it can go and flow in any number. We've started a scene about the Christmas gun. In some ways, improv made my listening skills and my agility better, I think. I don't know if it made me a better person, but I think it helped me understand the idea of validating and using yes and. I would offer an aside, looking at the guys in the room. I think women listen better than we do. I think men, to a great extent, are not taught to listen as well, maybe when we're kids, and we're caught up in being right? And now I want to tell you that what you're saying may be okay, or it may actually be wrong, and I'm going to explain to you a better idea or a different way of looking at that. I find women often listen better, and maybe it's something to do with having been a mother or having been more nurturing, but I think men have to work harder at listening well. So let's take another step in the listening world and talk a little bit about counseling and psychotherapy, Jen's specialty. Why do people appreciate being in counseling? I don't know how many of you have experienced that. I have been on both sides. It's because it's focused on being with another person. How many times in our lives do you sit in a chair or lie on the couch, if you're a psychoanalyst, and just have one other person listen to you and try to understand you and not interrupt? It's an unusual experience to be acknowledged fully for what you're saying, what you're feeling. You don't get a response from the therapist like, oh, that reminds me of the time that whatever. They don't do that. Let me tell you about my experience. No, the therapist is fully present with you and validating, and if they do anything, they're doing yes and, not no but. They may feel an urge to solve the problem, but they don't jump in. So that experience of being understood, of having someone to just sit with me, to be with me in my thoughts and my feeling, is very powerful, like Sparky was for me. So I enjoyed hearing from you. We asked you 2 weeks ago, and several of you left responses to the cards. The cards had 2 questions. One question was, who has most deeply understood you in your life? And the second one was, what did that experience or does that experience feel like? And there's a clear theme from the cards that I got in from you. My husband deeply understands me. I feel cherished, always. My mother and my brother, they grew up with me and they know me well. Right? My grandmother, comforting. My best friend for 22 years, I could tell her anything. My wife of 60 years, happy that I found her, and maybe that she found him. My wife of 57 years, there's not much unknown. End of story. My wife of 40 years, very affirming. My oldest son, interesting. I feel understood, loved, authentic, and respected. My husband, I end up feeling great. So those are the kinds of people that you've all said that listen to you deeply and not only listen to reply, but they listen to fully understand. The peace of God which surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I'm reminded, I grew up in a little town in Iowa, and I went to a little congregational church, and we sang the traditional hymns, Jesus Loves Me. And it strikes me that if we look at listening and understanding through the lens of the Christian church, it's very much about God and Jesus loving us and understanding us. And through prayer, having that relationship with someone that fully understands, even though they don't respond in real time. It's that fundamental need to be with somebody in prayer or in conversation.
Thanks for listening in on this week's discussion on Entry Point Faith. You can join the Entry Point Faith community in person every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. at Conner Prairie in Fishers, Indiana. For more information and a transcript of Nancy's messages, visit entrypointonline.org. Entry Point Faith is brought to you in partnership with MyPodcast.Media.